next year. Waiting for next year.
It's the waitingfornextyear.com podcast, live from my car edition. I'm here with the man, Guggy. It's been a couple weeks, or maybe even a couple months since you've been on. For those who don't remember, this is one of my buddies who I talk sports with all the time, who's like not just talk sports, but has like been a catalyst for many of my ideas, for my posts. How's it going, man?
Pretty mellow right now, doing a lot of work, so
yeah, exactly.
Low sleep.
So the Browns are 0-10. They lose to Jacksonville. Where is your head right now with this team compared to all the conversations we've had? And I'm on my Sell the Browns campaign. I've kind of given up the idea of trying to figure out whether Sashi Brown or Hue Jackson is more to blame. It's just a whole mess from the top down. So where are you with this whole thing?
Well, it is a mess, Craig, and the bad news for the Browns is I used to live for Sundays, as I'm sure a lot of your listeners, maybe some of them still do. Maybe some of you guys out there still do. But I don't care anymore. My Sundays, I make effort to do something productive with my Sundays at this point. That doesn't mean I'm not paying attention. I had the ball game on as I was working yesterday. But I just can't dedicate those 3 hours plus a few minutes to sitting on the couch and wasting my day, especially now that the days are a little shorter. I do have a thought that's a little different than just about everything I'm hearing on sports talk radio right now. And I think it also goes counter to a lot of your thoughts. The only thing that the new edition Browns have not tried is staying the course. And unfortunately, the owner, the front office, and the coach have all made that very difficult.
Very, very difficult.
To believe in. I do hope that that's what happens, and I also hope that all these guys, players included, learn from their mistakes, grow together, and also as fans that, we can see past the lack of wins or lack of win, depending on how we look at this.
No, but to your point,
mm-hmm.
I think is there maybe a coach out there who's better than Hue Jackson, who wouldn't make some of the mistakes that we're seeing Hue Jackson make? I unequivocally, yes. Is there somebody with a better track record or any track record of building a football team than Sashi Brown? That's also yes. But the idea is that you can't import institutional knowledge and a process of incremental improvement. And so if you constantly change things up, you restart the process of incremental improvement. And maybe the Browns are so low that wouldn't matter this time, but I think it always matters. I think it always matters as we've seen churn of guys like Mitchell Schwartz and Tashawn Gibson and Travis Benjamin and all that Joe Thomas middle class of the roster, the NFL middle class of the roster. And so I think you're right. Even if Sashi Brown and Hue Jackson leave something to be desired, there's something to be said for continuing to let them make improvements on the miscalculations they did in roster construction.
Absolutely. And here's some thoughts. First off,
I would still fire the owner if I could.
Right. Well, let's start with Jimmy Haslam. The minute he fired Chud.
Yep. It's ground zero.
It was ground zero because no coach wants to take over a crappy organization, a crappy team, and a crappy roster. So, yeah, he might have reached out to his buddy Nick Saban and said, I will pay you more to come to Cleveland than you could imagine making in Alabama. It's not going to happen. And the other thing where that's going to impact us is in the upcoming free agency. We probably, you pay more attention. If we don't have the most salary cap space available than any team, we're certainly close to
basically do. It's like the top 3 every year.
Right. So unless you're a veteran looking to get a paycheck and you don't care about wins and losses, Kenny Britt, you're not coming here. They have to overcome that somehow or another. I go back to thinking about, picture this young roster with a brand new playbook next year. That would be devastating. And basically, you are going to overturn some players if you do that. So I just want you guys to think about what will happen if we do get rid of the coaching staff or the front office.
All of a sudden, you're spending the first X number of weeks of training camp doing installation and all these other kinds of things where, the Patriots are changing a couple variables, but it's like they're changing 7% of what they've been doing for the last, 15 years.
Forget the Patriots. Let's talk about the Steelers.
Or the Bengals. Even the Bengals. They have stood with Marvin Lewis, and they change out coordinators, and there are changes in the roster and everything else, but they've stayed largely consistent with that team and that program for quite some time now, and it makes them the best. It gives them a chance to be the best versions of themselves instead of the worst. And the way the Browns are with the youth on the roster and the constant turnover of coaches, they're the worst of themselves all the time. But it's guys like Danny Shelton. Danny Shelton's going to be next year will be his 4th season. Guys like that are the ones that you need to step up and play that B+ level so that they enable the next Myles Garrett and Myles Garrett himself to shine. They're part of that. I know Danny Shelton was a 1st-round pick, but he's clearly a part of the NFL middle class. He's good. He'll never be great, but they need that guy, and they need him very badly.
Oh, for sure. That's the other thing, guys. It has not shown up in the win column, but every Sunday there's a handful of plays, a handful of players who have stepped up. That Jacksonville team we lost to yesterday, absolutely was 6-3, 7-3 now.
Yeah.
We were a 2-minute drill away from upsetting them. First half against Detroit, well played. Deshaun Kaiser's best game. Sometimes you want to take the kid and hit him over the helmet. Concuss him intentionally, maybe. But he's flashed. And one of the arguments that you and I have is, are we drafting a quarterback with this very early pick?
Well, and I definitely am, but I'm not miserable if we have to start Deshaun Kaiser for another year and give him another rep at running Hue Jackson's offense, even if he is determined to be the placeholder at some point.
Absolutely. But just, we have this same deal. We are the organization that, if you're a quarterback in particular, but I could apply this to a lot of different positions. If we draft you, we're going to ruin your career.
Yeah.
If Bill Belichick had drafted Deshaun Kaiser.
What's happening, buddy?
Hey,
we're in the
time
middle
out on the field.
We're in the middle of a Browns podcast.
Please tell me you guys are podcasting right now.
We're so podcasting.
So great. It's a car podcast.
It's a car podcast.
Come to this door over here when you're done.
Okay. You never know what's going to happen in a car podcast.
There we go. Celebrity car podcast. if Kaiser had been drafted by the Patriots, he might never have even seen the field until they drafted him or they traded him for a higher draft pick than they drafted him for.
He's the next Jacoby Brissett or Garoppolo.
Right. But when he shows up in a game, he's been sitting behind somebody and learning for 2-3 years. The Browns set themselves up not to have that somebody this year.
Well, no, and maybe Cody Kessler is that guy. But no, we thrust that guy into action for 2 straight seasons. You know, Cody Kessler had no business being on the field in either of the last 2 seasons. But because the Browns are the Browns, and because their roster is the way it is, and because their seasons unfold the way they do every single year, we never get a chance to hold a guy back. I constantly remind people that Joe Hayden did not start from the get-go when he was drafted.
Romeo Crennel wouldn't let you on the field as a rookie.
But here we have Jabril Peppers, Myles Garrett, David Njoku, Deshaun Kaiser. All these guys could still be in college, but no, they're starters for the Cleveland Browns against even a C+, B- NFL player with 7 years experience or 5 years experience has a massive, massive advantage over a superstar potential tight end from Miami. Like, that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. There's something to be said for that experience and having that 4 or 5 year veteran instead of even somebody with a higher ceiling who's so fresh and so green and so inexperienced. And the Browns have chosen to put those guys in primary positions all over the field.
Right. Supposedly, the playmakers of the team are guys who should be juniors in college or seniors in college this year.
Yeah.
Bernie Kosar going up against this defense would probably draw 2 or 3 offsides penalties per drive.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
His hard count.
Some of the more savvy quarterbacks have really taken advantage of that, and I'm surprised it doesn't happen more often. Now, the good news is all these guys have flashed a little bit.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things that I think is going to maybe doom us to 0-16 or 1-15 is the loss of Jamie Collins.
That's so huge.
He was the one guy with enough experience to shout at that guy who was about to go out of position or didn't know what they were supposed to do on that play. We've lost that. I was shocked. The defense played relatively well yesterday. But
this is also the difference between, and this is where I understand some of the criticism of Hugh Jackson. You know, that Jacksonville team is miserable on offense, and Blake Bortles is a liability to a large extent. So what did they do? They draft Leonard Fournette, and then their game plan includes 42 handoffs. And it's not like they were up 3 touchdowns and they decided to just run out the clock by running the ball. They decided to limit their downside potential by handing the ball off 42 times. Do you know how many times the Browns handed off to running backs yesterday? I think it was 12. You know, Kaiser ran 5 times, Crowell ran 10 times, and just 2 handoffs for Duke Johnson. So, I mean, if you're really... I get the Hugh Jackson criticism. I really do. I think the game plans are mediocre considering what this team is.
Yeah, this team, with what they have on offense, should be playing Marty ball, limit your mistakes. Eric Mangini ball. Oh, my goodness. You guys all wanted him fired. This is back to the consistency things. You know, Sports Talks Radio. Is Eric Mangini a Super Bowl level coach? No. So let's fire him.
Well, that wasn't really the issue with Eric Mangini. The issue with Eric Mangini was Randy Lerner hiring him, retrofitting a GM, and then hiring the GM that was so dysfunctional that he had to be fired. They tried to fire him with cause, and they escorted him out of the building during a workday. And then Eric Mangini was left to be his own personnel guy. You know, that was the real problem with Eric Mangini.
And he proceeded to win the last 5 games of the season in that situation.
He did, but he also wasted an entire second round of an NFL draft where he had 3 picks.
That kind of is our MO, so...
Yeah, but so it wasn't like Mangini was kind of put in an impossible spot, is what I'm saying.
He absolutely was, particularly when Holmgren came along and...
But if Holmgren had been smart, he would have left Mangini, would have kept, put Heckert in place, and they would have built that way.
I do really want to go back to when, for 2 series, we saw Jamie Collins and Myles Garrett on the field together. That looked like a pretty scary defense.
Yeah, with Ogba, too, before he broke his foot.
Yeah. Well, it's part of, the new Browns. We don't have that depth to overcome these kind of injuries. And once again, you got to really be proud of the defense that held Jacksonville. I know they're not a strong team offensively, but guys I don't even know who they were filled in and did so admirably. So once again, if we change GMs, suddenly these are the guys they didn't pick. They're not your guys.
Well, ultimately,
they make them disappear.
And this has been my argument, is that I don't think you need to change the strategy of the drafting. I think the Browns have drafted pretty well since Andrew Berry came in, and even since Sashi Brown has been in. It's been the overall strategy of constructing a game-ready roster. So, I like Jabril Peppers, I like Njoku, I like Myles Garrett, obviously. I like a lot of the guys that they've picked. They've done really well on undrafted free agents. Even a guy like Larry Ogunjobi. They're getting lots of contribution. My problem is with the overall philosophy on roster construction, where they thought that they could go this young and take the receiver plan and the backup quarterback plan, and that's my issue. So I think you can keep Andrew Berry and all the personnel people in place and replace kind of that Sashi Brown executive level. I think you can bring in more so that you don't get that churn. The thing I'm worried about is that roster churn, where they take otherwise effective guys, whether it's Mitchell Schwartz or even back to Jabal Sheard. There's no reason why Jabal Sheard shouldn't still be here, playing defensive end on the defensive line for the Cleveland Browns. There's just no reason for it.
You're absolutely right. And once again, this is another reason.
But I have no faith the owner is going to be able to pull it off, by the way.
Right. But here's another thing we got to talk about when it comes to stability. When you replace one piece, at a Sashi Brown level, or your coaching level, in addition to changing that playbook, when things go bad, fingers start getting pointed. And this is a mistake right now between Sashi and Hue and Jimmy. There's rumbles of finger pointing, not being on the same page, teamwork, and it's detrimental to all 3 of them.
Everybody,
And it's detrimental to us as fans. The perfect example is Joe Banner. He just, I don't like Chud. I found out that Chud was getting fired. My friend was sitting in the right bar seat. He happened to be, next to Joe Banner, and he heard the news early, and he texted me. And because my brain might think a little better than even Joe Banner's, I'm like, if this is a chess game, look ahead 3 moves. Okay? Chud gets fired. Joe Banner immediately starts his new coaching search. Nobody wants the job. Nobody wants to work for an organization that gets rid of you in 16 games.
Yeah, and as I've said, it wasn't even just Chud. The real thing that they did was that they pissed off Norv Turner. Norv Turner, say what you want about him, he is a well-established part of the network of NFL coaches. So he starts trashing Joe Banner and Jimmy Haslam and the Browns organization to any coach who might have even thought about being interested in the job. You've got a guy who's really well respected in the fraternity who's trashing you. So I'm with you, that chess move.
Right, but the other chess move that Joe Banner didn't realize is because he couldn't bring anybody great to the table because of the havoc he created, he got himself fired.
Yep.
That's what happens, guys.
And we end up with Farmer and Pettin.
Now, the flip side of this is plenty of teams have brought in new coaches, established coaches, or young coaches who hit the ground running.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not impossible. We've tried it. We've tried it a bunch. I'm just begging us, a couple more years, and that does a couple things for you. If Jimmy Haslam comes to a coach 2 years from now and says, enough's enough, these guys are losers.
But we've got a roster in place. It's ready to go. We gave Hue Jackson 4 years.
Right. Or on top of that, a guy looks and goes, wow, this guy stuck out 4 years.
Including 2 of the worst seasons in NFL history.
Right. He will support me.
Mm-hmm.
When Jimmy took over the team, that's as big a reset as you have.
Yeah.
And I can't believe he came from the Steelers. The one thing the Steelers organization should have taught him was stability. There's no getting around it. The Pittsburgh Steelers in my lifetime have had 3 coaches.
Yep.
We go through seasons where we have 2.
Well, and the fans have screamed about changing their coach any number of times where they've been unhappy with Mike Tomlin. And yeah, they changed some coordinators here and there. They changed things up a little bit. But damn it if they don't keep the head of the snake there.
Right.
So
they're to me, when I pay a little bit of attention to the Browns right now, there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Last season, that 1-15 season, everybody said, oh, they built the foundation.
Yeah.
Okay? They didn't. If you really look at last season, they just dug the hole that they were going to build the foundation in. I mean, think about it. They just threw a bunch of players out, new playbook, everything. I mean, it was just, they dug the hole. And 1-15 is the result.
And there's certainly some question of whether that's a good idea, whether it's ever acceptable to lose at the rate that they've been losing the last 2 years. If you're going to do this, though, it's got to be in service of something, and it can't be in service of something if you fire everybody right now. Not unless the only way you can justify firing everybody right now is if Jimmy Haslam sells the team and the new guy comes in and chops it all out.
Right, and he has enough cachet.
Yes.
Yes. Waiting for next year, fans. I just said the word cachet on a sports talk.
Hey, man. We could
deal with it.
We use $3 words here all the time.
Yeah,
all the
so
time.
New owner might have the cachet to bring in some substantial NFL talent in the front office and the coaching
that's
staff.
the kind of monumental change that that erases history. But unless a court case goes the way it could possibly go, there's just no chance of the Haslam selling the team.
No, and once again, I want you guys to look at that glass as half full. And Myles Garrett, wow, right?
He looks like an animal.
Right. When Njoku actually catches a pass, holy moly. Also, we still have not managed to deal with the wide receiver issue, which is...
Although Corey Coleman does look like he's taken a jump.
Right.
And this is, again, the young player thing. He's not really... Your receivers, you're supposed to give him 3 seasons. We're not going to know until next year what Corey Coleman truly is.
I mean, we all kind of freak out because there have been a lot of rookie receivers who've come into the league recently that the Browns managed not to draft.
Yep.
Who
almost
actually,
as many as quarterbacks we've not drafted.
But it's very unusual for a wide receiver historically in the NFL to jump off the page in a rookie season.
Yeah.
You know, when you look at rookies who jump off the page that first year, they tend to be running backs. Traditionally.
Yes.
So, my bigger concern with the Browns, excuse me, draft picks has been their ability to stay on the field.
Yeah.
When you go back to our 10-6 Romeo Crennel season, we were almost injury-free that year. I think some of it has to do with when you're losing, you don't play within yourself. You're trying to do that extra. And I think that extra leads to injuries every now and then.
Yeah.
So
I think you're right.
I mean, nobody of significance has avoided the injury bug this year.
Though it's been a league issue too, so I'm not going to say it's all about the Browns, but nobody gets more exposed.
Right, I'm saying
than
it's
a team with no depth like the Browns.
Right, it's a vicious cycle. When these guys get hurt, we're already a team that's struggling to win. You know, once again, Jamie Collins. Oh my gosh, losing him is just. I don't see how your defense, with all these young players, doesn't have that one or two moments every game where somebody's running down the field uncovered.
No, and you know, as a fan and media environment, you're always trying to figure out, well, do the Browns have a chance to win this week? And when he was out in concussion protocol, like, my chances of the Browns winning games was virtually zero. You know, I think the Browns could sneak a win in somewhere, possibly, or I thought they could have. But Jamie Collins being out really, really eliminated that for me. And now that he's out for the rest of the season, I really don't know. You start piling up him plus Agba plus this guy plus that guy. It gets pretty thin. And this is. I'm not even going to venture to talk about Josh Gordon.
Yeah, he's just a non-factor for me too.
Until he's standing in the end zone with the ball in his hands
in
a regular season game, I'm just not going to talk about Josh Gordon.
Now, Craig, we could sit and talk about the Browns all day.
Yeah.
But I'm actually boring myself. We are on the verge of blowing up a turkey.
Yes. We are going to blow up a turkey.
Can we please go do that? And can we add a little bit of that to this podcast?
Yeah, so as some of you know, I'm a super boring insurance guy. That's like what I do for a living. But
wait. So aside from waiting for next year to make his life more exciting and hanging out with musician-type folks to make life more exciting, Craig has devised a way to make insurance exciting. And hopefully this is the start. I mean, if we could get some buildings to collapse, if we could get some real fires.
Well, hang on, let's explain what we're doing. So it's Thanksgiving week, and I decided to make a fun video, kind of a PSA. So I'm hooked up here with a friend of mine who also happens to be a firefighter, and we're gonna show you exactly what not to do if you decide to fry a turkey on Thanksgiving by dropping a frozen turkey into a turkey fryer and taking video of the results. So I'll be sure to send that link out on Twitter, even though it's not really waiting for next year related.
Right. We really should have talked about that at the beginning of the podcast.
It would have been a hell of a lot better than a Browns talk.
So
don't try it at home, but if you know a firefighter and you can get away with
actually,
goofing off,
if you take all the safety precautions, I highly recommend trying it at home.
Just make
if
sure
you're
you
a
take
pyro.
good video.
Yeah.
All right.
Submit your videos.
Thanks for listening. No, don't. We don't encourage it. Leave it to professionals or something.
Become friends with firefighters and make some videos.
As an insurance agent, I say don't do this. All right. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you next time. It's been the waitingfornextyear.com podcast.